today?
I'm doing really well. Julien, how is life in Paris?
Life is beautiful. Life is great because today I'm not going to tell you a story. And I don't believe you're going to tell me a story either, actually.
Oh, and I have a mediocre one I was so excited to share.
Yeah, but I have much better here. I've actually invited someone for dinner, and I thought, instead of just doing dinner, why not doing therapy? It sounds like a much nicer activity to have.
I love it. Who have you brought for dinner and therapy?
Well, I'm not actually sure whether you guys have met. I mean, you've been at absolutely every collaboration and CX event on the planet for the past few years. So I guess at some point you guys must have been talking. But I'm not sure if you know each other. The guy I want to invite tonight, and I hope you don't mind because I'm sure he's going to have a great story to share with us, is actually a senior analyst for the Cavill Group, and it happens to be focusing on both collaboration and customer experience, making it so much more important for him to release some of the steam tonight. I don't know if you've met him, Patrick Watson. Hey, Patrick, how are you doing today?
Really good, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm very much looking forward to venting the particular experience that I've brought to you this evening. So I appreciate the therapy.
Have you ever been crying on Max's shoulder in the past? That's a first, I guess, right?
No, this is going to be the first time, but I mean, maybe the first of many. Who knows?
Yes, it better be. It better be. I think that's the call. The call going forward is many more sessions and many more conversations.
Well, you know what? What I'm suggesting is let's go with the story. Let's lie down on the couch. Tell us everything about how traumatic that has been for you. And if the story is good enough, we probably can have dinner after that. Or maybe breakfast for you, Max, I'm thinking. Dinner is maybe an early one.
Yeah, I breakfast is definitely on the agenda for me here. And that's fine. I have oatmeal. I have some fruit. So it'll be delicious.
Perfect. Then let's do that. And Patrick, you're based in London, right? So it's a little bit earlier for you as well.
Well, actually, Julien, I'm based in the north of England, outside of Manchester, but same time zone, so it would be dinner for me. And this story is definitely going to get me a dinner. There's no way it doesn't justify a dinner.
All right, so that's a good teaser. What about we get into it? What actually happened to you?
So I have worked I've worked from home for many years now, and worked for Cavill Group from home for a couple of years. And I woke up one particular morning ready for an industrious day of productivity, home-based productivity, and my internet service was unavailable. Not completely unusual. Internet services go down, routine maintenance, nothing like that had been planned particularly. The internet was down. I checked the service availability with my internet service provider. No notifications about anything going on in the area. No reason why it should be down. So at this point, this is an urgent issue for me. I can't do any work. So I head to the website. First thing that irritated me is that they want me to do everything apart from call them. So they've got a live chat option available. They've got online help guides for various things. Check your router. All of this stuff. I'm vaguely techie, so I know that the issue was beyond that. I want to speak to someone. It's an urgent thing. So I eventually managed to navigate to the part of the website where I can find the telephone number, which is a task enough in itself. I ring up. I have to enter some security information, which doesn't work. My security information isn't recognized at all. So I have to mangle the keypad until I know that I've broken the IVR so much that it's going to put me through to a person, which is a bit of insider information from the industry. So I've done that. I'm then on hold for 20 odd minutes in the first call with some hold music that I have no option to stop. I'm not a particular fan. It's playing generic loops of songs that were popular well before I was born on loops of 20 or 30 seconds over and over again for 20 minutes. At this point, I know I'm in for the long haul. I've put my phone headset on and I'm walking around the house doing various jobs. I eventually get through to an agent. I try to enter my security details. My security details don't work. They can't find my account at all. They have no idea what's going on. Effectively, it doesn't look like I'm a customer. At this point, I'm cut off on the phone. Cut off dead. I assume maybe I've accidentally pressed it in my pocket or something like that. So the process repeats. I call back up. I mangle the keypad. I hold. The music plays again. I get through to an agent. Go through security fails again, start to explain the issue. They still can't find my account. Cut off again. At this point, I'm thinking, this can't be me. Yeah, honestly, I was sort of incredulous. So call up the third time, go through the whole process again. By this point, over an hour has gone past of sort of time on the phone. And the first thing I say when I get through is, your phone, because I don't want to be cut off again. I'm not bothered about the issue now. I'm like, your phone system's cutting me off. And they said, oh, yes, we've got an issue with the phone system today where it's cutting you off. And I'm like, can you please note down my number for someone to call me back? Because if I get cut off, it takes me half an hour to get back through to you. So they said, yeah, absolutely. We'll take down your number. Anyway, managed to explain the issue. It's beyond the sort of capability of the agent I've got through to immediately. So they have to transfer me to a different department. They put me on hold. The music comes back. They transfer me to another department. I get through to someone in the provisioning team, I think it was. Why I had to speak to them, I'm not quite sure. I start to explain the issue to them. They then want me to re-enter my security details, which haven't worked on any of the previous calls. I explain my security details aren't working. Something's going wrong with my account. At that point, I'm cut off again. So then I have to ring back up. Whilst I'm ringing back up, luckily, someone did call me back, so I hang up them. It's the first person. They have to transfer me to another department. This continued, and I could go through the entire the sort of entire logistics of it. But effectively, the same thing happened repeatedly. Their phone system was having an issue and was repeatedly cutting me off. In total, that day, I was on the phone for 4 hours to this particular internet service provider trying to figure out what happened. Now, this doesn't necessarily pertain to the CX experience, but what had happened was, in completely no fault of my own, there'd been some sort of administrational error, and they had cancelled my account. So effectively, I'm not a customer. None of my security information would be recognized because I don't have an account with them. They've terminated my internet service. I should have got warnings saying, well, your internet's going to be turned off in 2 weeks. Apparently, there were fail-safes. I did eventually manage to speak to someone quite senior who assured me they would rectify the issue. But it went on for several days before they could reconnect my internet. So effectively, I'm down. I can't do any work. I was having to go and work in a local coffee house of any of the name brands that you can select that might be available in the US or the UK. They're particularly popular and might rhyme with bucks. And I had to go and work there for the meantime for the 3 days. The issue went on, and it was a case of there was no sort of proactive service. I had to continually call back and ask for an update. What's happening? When are my services getting turned back on? What's the issue? And this isn't a cheap service we're talking about. I'm not on a standard broadband provision. This is, I'm paying in excess of £100 a month in the UK. So that's what, $130 max. Similar in euros, Julien, if you need that translated. It's a premium service. And the other thing I think I should flag as well, the customer service, eventually they did resolve the issue, but the customer service was, the sort of processes in place were so bad, I would move provider on that basis. It was bad enough for me to think, I never want to deal with this company again. They clearly don't value my business that much that they care about, the quality of service they provided at me. But in my particular location, I am restricted in terms of broadband providers I can have. There is only one that can offer the sort of speeds I want for video podcasting like this. So I can't move to anywhere. It is a restricted market. There is no option for me to move. So I have to stick with them. They did resolve the issue. The service came back up. But I think in total that week, I must have spent in excess of sort of 6 hours on the phone. And that's genuinely me with a headset on, walking around the house. You can't really do anything else when you're on the phone. You two know what it's like. You're having to focus on that issue. There was the sort of things that I particularly wanted to flag to you two guys that I thought you would find interesting. There was well, first of all, the phone system disconnecting, which apparently was a technical issue on their side, and obviously we have no idea what phone system they're using, but it seems sort of crazy that there's no backup for that, or no sort of provision of some sort of process for if that happens. There was no sort of joining up of different departments. Even if my security details had been working, every time I spoke to a new agent, which on some calls I'd speak to 3 or 4 different departments because they couldn't quite figure out what was going on, I was having to retell them my name, retell them my address, give them my security details that weren't recognized anyway. So no joining up, technical issues on the phone. In some cases, and as I said, some of the technical people I spoke to, and in the end, the senior person that I ended up speaking to, actually did sound like they cared, and the sort of personal customer service from a couple of people, I thought was quite good. But so some good staff, but the systems in place, awful. It was genuinely one of the most frustrating. The first day was particularly frustrating. And obviously there's a loss of productivity there, but it was the worst. And I think it's worse when we're in the industry. And I know you guys have said this before, when we get to hear about all of these fantastic solutions that are available and all the great innovation that's out there in the industry, and people talk about AI and machine learning and all these clever things and sentiment analysis. I would have been happy if I could have just called someone up on the phone and spoken to them for an hour and they'd understood what's going on. I didn't care about any of the fancy stuff. None of that was there. So I think that made it particularly frustrating. But yeah, the issue went on for days. And on the first day, it went on for hours of repeatedly trying to call back.
Well, wow. Thank you for sharing that. Obviously
Thank
painful.
You. I feel better already, Drew. I feel better for getting it off my chest.
It's usually how it works for us. So I'm glad that actually worked out for you. And you're right. Technology is as good as what we do with it, right? Technology on its own doesn't solve anything if you don't do the right thing with it. And I love your story, because that's the beauty of a monopoly here. And Max could tell you a little bit about the IRS at some point, but
Yeah.
there are some great nuggets to uncover in that story. Max, do you feel like going first, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, the monopoly was the first thing I was going to jump on. It is interesting what happens to customer service when somebody doesn't have an alternative place to go. One of the things that struck me that you talked about kind of at the end there was multiple departments, no communication back and forth, no understanding. That's something that I always knew was an issue, but I think as we've spent a year talking these things through, one of the things I've learned is when you've got silos that can't communicate to each other, that's always a pain point. That's always means things are going to get awful, things are going to break down. But the really painful stuff here sounds like it was more lack of staffing. I just you had to have a really long wait time when you did figure it out. Stupid process where, okay, somebody's calling and they can't log in. Let's make sure, can't validate themselves. Let's make sure they have to validate themselves 5 times. And then the technology piece of, oh yeah, we're just going to drop the call. What the heck? Especially for an internet provider where you would think they would have some of that technology. All of that just kind of, this is wonderfully awful just across the board.
It really was. And just to sort of develop that, I think, and maybe arrogantly, I'm a relatively good customer. When I call a call center, I appreciate that the agent on the end of the phone, has had they haven't cut off my internet service. So at first I ring up, I'm pretty amicable. Obviously, I'm slightly annoyed that my internet's down, I can't work. Honestly, Max, by the time I got to sort of the 4th call of having to call them back, they'd answer the phone and they'd say, "Oh, hello, it's X from XY." And I'd say, "Right, I'll stop you there. My name is Patrick Watson. I have called 5 times." I was sort of immediately having to shoot them down because I was scared I was going to get cut off, and I just wanted to give them my details. I'd gone from being, if they'd been doing the sentiment analysis, at first I would have seen, oh, the customer's quite calm. By the end of it, they'd have been like potentially furious murderer, as called, the company.
Right. And, well, if they cared and they did have all the fancy technology that you talked about, you didn't need them to have, then at least at some point somebody might have followed up and said, "Wow, Patrick, this sucks. Here's 3 months free," or something like that, because that's the sort of thing that should get caught. But clearly they don't care enough to ever.
But that's the sort of thing that you can do in a siloed environment anyway, because if you need multiple departments and no one is taking responsibility and no one is able to follow through, it's not going to happen. What I love about your story is you start with something that is exactly the opposite of everything I'm saying every single call. which is the only thing you wanted was to be able to place a call, and there was no easy way to do that. Usually for me, that's the other way around. Everything I want is to not place a call, find a way to WhatsApp or live chat or even email if that's coming to that. But the only option I'm given is place a call and wait for 30 minutes with that nice music from ages before I was born.
Which is music from my generation, by the way.
None of us has said anything like that, by the way, Max. We haven't said a word. But yeah, I love it because it proves that companies don't understand yet that you need to cater to every type of customer profile you may have. You have people like me who, please don't force me to call, I just don't want to call. And you have people like, not necessarily like you, but in situation like yours, where you just want to place a call because you know you're going to waste your time with digital stuff because you know exactly what you want.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. It was the urgency that I knew. I was like, I need to speak to. You're absolutely right. In normal circumstances, Julien, I would be reticent to speak to anyone and would be desperately trying to online chat. But in this, you're absolutely right. It was purely because I knew it was urgent. I was like, I need to speak to someone on the phone.
So
what I would have done, though. Sorry, go Max.
Sorry, I have one real quick question. So your internet access was down, but you were going online to check stuff. So I did want to ask, I'm using cellular to do that? How are you?
I was just tethering to my mobile phone as a backup. That was and to be honest, Max, that's what I had to do before I could go and use the local cafe that provides internet if you buy a very cheap green tea or something for free, which is what I did, which is a tactic that anyone else out there can use. You don't have to buy loads of stuff to use their internet. Before I could do that, I had calls later on in the day that I had to just tether to luckily I get quite good I get 4G signal where I am, so I could tether to my phone and check the service provision. But that was the only option sort of left to me.
I'm surprised you didn't try to trick the system. Sorry, Max, go ahead.
Imagine if you weren't that way.
Oh, absolutely.
How would you even get the phone number to call them at that point? I mean, you would have really been dead.
Yeah, I'd have had to resort to going through old paperwork if I'd kept the old paperwork, which is, and if I had to go in my filing system, Max, I could have been down for weeks.
Right. Yeah. Years in mine.
I'm surprised you didn't call and in the same time use the live chat and the web form and the forum, and because that's typically what I'm going to do. Maybe not on the first call, but the third time they hang up on me, trust me, there's going to be revenge there, and that's going to be brutal. And I'm not going to leave it to that. So I'm surprised you're a much nicer person than I am.
No, actually, you're right. And now I'm regretting not slandering them on social media at the time. But I think genuinely, it was either, I think it was a Monday morning. So you know what it's like on a Monday. You're already hectic with work. And I think I genuinely panicked, Julien. I was like, I have to resolve it. I wasn't even, I didn't even think about, you're right. I probably could have gone for an omni-channel complaint across different platforms, but my brain didn't quite get that far. I just thought I'll just ring constantly on the phone until I speak to someone. But you're right. I should have done a bit more maybe on the. Well, I mean, not that it's on me, but I could have done some more on the other channels.
Exactly. Let's try not to see what you could have done better, but let's try to analyze it a bit and see what the company could have done better. So first, the most important one for me is probably they need to give choice, and forcing either the phone or, in this case, a digital channel is always the wrong answer. The right answer is give me choice. Make it easily accessible, available, make it clear. If you can, go even one step further. Tell me how much waiting time I'm going to have. What are your SLAs? That very few companies do that, but that should be key because you should tell me upfront how much time I'm going to waste by using one channel versus the other so that you can pick the one that makes sense for you.
Yeah, that would have been great. That's even to know you're going to be on the phone for, it's going to be 20 minutes till you speak. And a lot of people I call do have that, but this particular ISP, Julien, did not have that in any way.
The second thing is probably to your comment, Max. I'm not sure they were necessarily understaffed to start with, but if you hang up on every customer, well, at some point your FCR goes down because they all call back over and over again, and therefore you have a staffing issue that you may not have had in the first place. And the fact that they don't try to tackle it, they don't remove the security question, or they don't attack right away, or they don't call back on people, then the volume just naturally increases, which gets crazy. Then there was one thing about, I hate tickets. I believe that we should treat customers as people having multiple questions and not as one problem, one ticket. But in that specific case, giving you a reference number you could refer to so that you are being sent to the right person who has your file already would have been key, because having to explain the situation over and over again, God, that's frustrating. And I'm actually surprised you didn't become a terrorist on this one. But they should have fixed it.
No, you're right. That's really interesting. And effectively, I implemented a ticketing scheme of my own, because by the end of it, I was saying, what's your name? What department are you in? What office are you in? So when I had to call up subsequently on the following days, I said, I need to speak to XYZ in XYZ office about XYZ. And they'd say, oh, can we not try? And I'd say, no. Absolutely categorically not. I will only speak to XYZ in XYZ office about. I'm not explaining this anymore. So effectively, I'd implemented my own ticketing system using, some poor tech guy's name.
Perfect. Well, that ended up working out. Maybe the last thing I would say to that is, it does sound like there was no gesture of any sort, meaning they found a way to reconnect your access. I haven't heard that you were saying you got some freebies of some sort, or an upgrade, or an apology of some sort. That's a basic thing. Did you forget to mention it, or did it not happen at all?
No, it did not happen. I did not get any recompense. Also, on top of that, a few days later, I got a sales call from said ISP asking me if I would like to upgrade my my service for some extra money. Not, oh, you've had a real issue, we'd like to give you some additional services. Maybe you'd like some TV channels or something. No. Oh, and the other thing I should have said at the beginning of this is the particular provider in question provides my TV in my home as well. So it wasn't just me from a business case that was disgruntled. The TV doesn't work, which obviously causes a problem and a danger for me potentially domestically if I can't provide TV for my spouse. So it wasn't just the internet's down. Effectively we're completely down. The one last thing I would like to say on it as well is I am a sort of and this has nothing to do with the ISP, although it's their fault. I love technology. We're in the technology industries. I have gone through the process, Julien and Max, of connecting everything in my house to the internet. So absolutely everything is controlled by the internet. The heating, the sound system, the lights, the TV, everything's controlled by the internet. So when the internet goes down, I mean, you could argue that maybe I should have put some sort of redundancy in for my own, addiction to the internet. But when the internet goes down, my whole smart house scenario falls down with it. So it wasn't just a case of I couldn't work. It sort of, the whole sort of house grinds to a halt. So, but no, I wasn't offered any sort of recompense.
Well, then that would be probably the last thing here. If you did something wrong to your customers, or your no longer customers, I don't know how we're supposed to call you in that case, there is something you need to do about it, at least for the sake of retention, or making sure they don't go on internet shows to talk about how bad the customer service was. Yep. At least for that. Max, any other wisdom you'd like to add to that?
I don't know if it's wisdom, but I have one last thought. Think, and Julien, you alluded to this, but I just want to say it outright. Think of the cost to the company. I mean, you spent 5 hours, 6 hours, Patrick. I'm sure half of that time was talking to someone. So there's 3 hours that, to your point earlier, there was nothing proactive. An email saying, Tuesday, we're shutting your internet service down. Here's a link to renew your credit card, or whatever they thought was going on. It would have been no people involved. So just the phenomenal cost to them of this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And eventually, the sort of senior person that I spoke to said that there should be safeguards in place. So if I go to cancel my internet now, they will send me an email saying, "Are you sure you're leaving us? Do you want to leave?" But apparently, something had gone wrong in that, so that there were none of those warnings were in place, and the internet just cut off. But the other thing, Max, which is a really good point, is because they didn't know what the issue was, they sent me to, I mean, on some occasions, I think I was bounced around 5 or 6 times. So at points, I was speaking to departments that couldn't do anything about it effectively. So I was just wasting someone's time who had no possibility of, rectifying my issue. It was wasting my time and the poor guy in, reconnection or whatever it was, or provisioning, that couldn't do anything about it, or tech services. So you're right. It was a calamity of errors all around.
Now multiply this by the number of people who faced the same issue that day, and that gives you an idea of the huge amount of money that was wasted in terms of agents' time being wasted, in terms of your time being wasted, but also in terms of a customer that may leave. Now, in your specific case, hey, you can't leave, so you're going to have to stick with them for a while, but others may not, may be luckier.
No, well, just on that point, so there aren't any immediate service providers that can offer the same fiber service, but subsequently, since then, I have investigated much more expensive satellite broadband services. So although they think, oh, really, he can't really move, if I want to spend a lot more money on a satellite internet link, maybe I can. So potentially they haven't recompensed me, and in the long run, maybe I will go with a satellite internet connection, and they will lose a customer that, as I said, it was a premium service. It's £100
definitely want to hear the story when your satellite goes down, and you will have to come back on the couch to tell us about that.
Julien, don't say that.
I think we got a dinner plan now, right, Max? We good?
I think so. I'm ready for breakfast, and I think you guys should have nice dinner and wine or beer or cider or whatever is going to go well with it.
Are you feeling much better about it? I hope you do.
I am. It's much better to talk about it, because I sort of vent to my missus here, and she is annoyed about it, but it's not as good as speaking to two people in the industry who know we can fix this. We know the technology and the processes and the procedures are out there. So yeah, I just hope. Although I said, maybe I'll cry on Max's shoulder for a long time to come, hopefully, these customer service issues will be alleviated, and, I won't have to do that too much, but fingers crossed.
Perfect. Well, hopefully we'll be out of a job very soon, Max, because everything customer experience is going to be much better in the near future. Thank you so much for joining us today, Patrick. Max, any last thoughts on your side?
Sadly, I don't think we'll be out of the CX therapy business anytime soon. But I appreciate the optimism. Great, if very painful story, Patrick, and great conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, both.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I do appreciate the therapy.
Perfect. Then hope to have you on the couch again soon for hopefully a positive story next time. And Max, I will talk to you next week. Thank you guys. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.